Give you a little bit of a background. I actually work for Fife College and I'm based in HMP Grampian. Fife College are the service providers for education within HMP Grampian. HMP Grampian was built 4 or 5 years ago and it's the UK's first sole community-facing prison. And I think the focus there is in the word community. So everybody, most people within HMP Grampian have an AB postcode. One of our biggest challenges, as probably a lot of you can relate to it, is engagement from our learners. That's always quite a tricky thing. One of the things that we do successfully is project-based delivery and project-based learning. So how this started with us, the Your Voice, Your Choice was advertised all over. Some of my very enthusiastic staff members knew about it. But a lot of the prisoners that we had in custody at that time had been in the community the previous year, and they had attended the event in the community centre and they had voted. They still have friends and families in the community which are affected by this, so they knew all about it already. So they wanted to be involved. So we sort of thought, well, this is a community project, we can potentially apply for some funding. We're going to go for it as a project that they're interested in, something that they see as being relevant to them and relevant to their families. And we know from experience that when it's something that involves their families, it's a massive motivator for them to be interested and involved. So we had a quick hook in there. They would be interested. We would come up with some project ideas. So we got our groups together. They wanted to be involved in it again. They wanted to still remain connected to the outside, which is clearly very difficult when you're within a prison and the walls that surround it. So from the Learning Centre, there was 2 projects, and of course there was a lot of work leading up to their application. One of them was a gardening project. So there's various work sheds within, I don't know if you're familiar with working in prisons, various work sheds, and one of them's a upcycling one where they upcycle wooden pallets. So they decided they would like to make containers to give to schools that the schools could then use to plant vegetables, herbs, flowers, whatever. And the other one was making planters and having them all planted up, because there's a garden work party as well, to improve the public areas and the shopping precincts. They wanted to have these and then link in with local groups to maintain the planters. The other one was an emphasis on health and fitness, and that was particularly with the ladies, our female prisoners. Again, working with local groups, and that would be their connection back to the community. There was a couple of other projects that was involving the prison, but that was specifically the Learning Centre ones. So we got the application form. We wanted them to be part of this whole process. So this is the 2017 map of Peterhead. And as you can see, the border is much more extended and it includes HMP Grampian, which is just right on the tip there. Previously, that had been excluded. So these guys were pretty quick to notice, actually, we're included. We're actually included in the community, which is massive for them. So that wasn't just quite enough to apply for the projects. They wanted to be more involved, and they said, so if that border includes us, we want to vote. Now, prisoners and voting normally don't go together, but this is different. This is obviously something very different. But they couldn't vote. One, they couldn't attend the event. They weren't going to get out for the day attached to anybody. So they couldn't go to the event to actually vote in person. And the other thing was the online voting. I'm afraid they don't have access to the internet, or not that we know of anyway. We'll leave it at that. So they're excluded. So once again, this barrier's up, which is often the case. And they're faced with this all the time. Yes, we're included as part of this. However, we're actually excluded. There was no point in including us there. We can't vote. So what are we going to do? So we do like a problem to try and work over it. We set up a group, a meeting with the steering group. So off we went to have a chat about this whole thing, took all the points at the prisoners. And I'm using the word prisoners, which is very alien to me because we work for Fife College. We usually call them learners, but I'm specifically calling them prisoners at the moment, so forgive me. So they gave us all the questions and the points that they wanted to raise, and we had to take it to the steering group on their behalf. We were most impressed with the support that we received, and first of all, the fact that we were okay to go along with our points of view. So after discussion, deliberation, it was agreed that the prison population was actually part of the local community, and the decision was made that they would be eligible to vote, which was fantastic news. So we're really excited to take this back. Now we've got the practicalities of how this would happen. So ballot boxes were set up in every hall in every level. So every single prisoner would have access to vote. We had to promote the projects. Now, they can buy local papers and they can watch TV, but how were they going to find out about the projects? And it's only fair that they found out about all the projects that were on offer. So we had posters, and we've got a media unit, and they have a in-cell television, so that's channel 22, so you can put anything on here, and it's streamed in every television in every cell. So each of these projects was promoted on the television cells, also posters throughout the prison as well. And that was every project. A voting slip was hand-delivered to all, and I think at the time it was 428 prisoners, hand-delivered on the same day, and that was one of the steering group members and one of my staff members. Popped them through the door one night, and the votes had to be done that night, popped in the ballot box the following day to be collected and taken straight back to the steering group. The prisoners very much understood the massive privilege that they'd been granted to have a voice. The results were in, and the response from them was phenomenal. So a little bit of a breakdown there. 35 out of the 51 population at that time voted, so 68% of the female population voted. 119 male prisoners voted, and I think at the time the population for the men was 377, which is 32. Interesting point, because they're the most honest and open people that I've ever worked with. They tell you who they voted for. We didn't ask, we didn't look. And actually, not many of them voted for our projects, which I thought was phenomenal. The interesting thing was they voted for the projects that was going to have the biggest impact on their families in the community. So even though, we'd set all this up, they really weren't too interested in our projects, which was great news because they made an informed choice. Another point to add in there, I don't know if you're looking at that and thinking, well, actually, because I think the average of that's 36% take-up. Is that good? For our population, it's excellent. I had asked the governors, what's the normal take-up? Because they do biannual surveys on various things. And there'd been a survey a couple of weeks before that, and the take-up for the whole prison was 8%. So 36 was superb. At the end of the project, bit of an evaluation with them, and this is the things that they said. They felt that it was really good to be part of the community, to be a real part of the community. They felt as if they could give something back. They didn't want to waste the opportunity that they were given to have a say. And they felt as if they had something in common with their family. They were inside voting, the families were outside voting, and they could have discussions about what was going on in their community. So they really appreciated that. It was much, much appreciated and very successful.